Hey, I'm Jim at Broadfield. Thanks for joining us for another Broadfield Liquid Lunch and Learn every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I am really excited about the show that we have for you today. Edgar is going to be running through a vMix tutorial all about the vMix live production software on the JVC turnkey systems, the KMIP8 and the KMIP12. It is a great way for you to share these resources with your customers and show them all the great production capabilities built into these JVC turnkey boxes. Before we get into that tutorial, and that tutorial is going to run in just a moment, I want to tell you about some of the great products and promotions available from JVC. Starting, of course, with the brand new pricing on the full line of JVC PTZ cameras. The KYPZ200 is now one of the most affordable cameras on the market in the marketplace, with a broadcast quality spec coming in at just $795. You want that camera with NDI production capabilities? The KYPZ200N comes in at under $1,000 at $995. You're getting that camera with the NDI production capabilities built into it. You can step up to the KYPZ400N now with a brand new low price of $1195, or the KYPZ510 at $1295, or 510N with NDI for $1495. A full family of PTZ cameras to choose from, all at $1,500 or less. Everywhere from the PZ200 to the 510, available now in stock at Broadfield and through all of our JVC dealers. There's also a great promotion on the PZ510 and 510N cameras, where if you bundle 3 of those cameras, you can offer your customers the RM LP100U PTZ camera controller in that bundle for free. This gives you that 3-camera bundle at just $3885, or the 3-camera bundle with NDI at $4485, giving you all of those features for all of your customers. Purchase a qualifying connected cam HC500U or 500UN by December 31st and take advantage of JVC's $500 instant rebate. This allows you to offer the 500U 4K handheld camcorder to your customers for just $27.95. 500UN, again with the NDI HX production capabilities, for just $30.95. And then the star of today's show, the JVC IP8 turnkey live production systems. Broadfield is your source for all JVC professional products, including these vMix turnkey systems. These systems are all built by JVC to the vMix Ruby spec, allowing you to offer your customers a complete environment of software and hardware for all of their live production needs. The IP8 starts at just $49.99 with the right NDI or SDI configuration for all of your customers' needs. The new and larger KMIP12 is also available, giving you that 4K production capabilities with added NDI and SDI IOs built into these units themselves, starting at just $10,999. So I told you these vMix turnkey systems were going to be the star of today's show, and we asked Edgar to put together a vMix tutorial to show you all of the production power and capabilities of these turnkey systems. We're going to roll that tape now, so let's get started.
Hello everybody, this is Edgar Shane, JVC Engineering, and today I'd like to show you a quick tutorial how to use JVC KMIP8S4 and KMIP12S8 video mixers powered by vMix. vMix user interface reminds any standard video switcher, where you have your preview window, program window, transitions area in between, inputs, and audio mixer. Any asset of your production is considered an input in vMix, so you can add live cameras, pre-recorded video, audio clips, graphics, low thirds, virtual sets. All these assets you add to this area of inputs, they all become your inputs. And vMix 4K and Pro licenses limit amount of inputs up to 1000, so you should have plenty of space for all your assets, including live and pre-recorded videos and graphics. You start your production from clicking New, and that's where you select the video standard for this live production session. And you can select out of SD, HD 720, 1080, all the way up to 4K 60p. In our case, we select 1080, 60p, 5994p, and you click OK. So now this project is 1080, 60p, and vMix recommends to match the project resolution to the output of your program. So if you are streaming live 1080, 60p, then settings should be 1080, 60p, and if you happen to have your project sent live 1080, 30p, it may be better to select 1080, 30p resolution and frame rate for your project. So now to add inputs to your production, you simply click Add Input, and this is perhaps the most frequently used button in this user interface. You can see that you can add pre-recorded videos, live cameras via SDI, NDI, SRT, instant replay. You can delay your video, you can add images, photos, PowerPoints, files, pre-recorded and live audio, titles, virtual sets, and many other things. We will start from adding camera via SDI. I have a couple cameras in my studio right now, so I click on camera and then click on this drop-down menu. You can see there's 4 inputs with a Decklink Duo capture card, so it's Decklink Duo 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So we can select this input and click OK. So this is live camera, which is in my studio right now. This is KMIP8S4. If you were using KMIP12S8, you will have 4 more inputs available, which makes a total 8 SDI inputs with KMIP12S8. So we added this SDI camera. Now we can go ahead and add NDI camera. NDI is over IP, and the way NDI works, switcher will find all available cameras on your network, and you can add any of those cameras here. I can click on this camera and add it via NDI. So now this is another camera via NDI, and this camera is via SDI. To switch between inputs, you can use any of those transitions. You can cut, or you can slide, or you can use cube or any other transition. There are 4 buttons for these transitions, but each button comes with this drop-down menu, so you can select any other transition here, and you can also specify the duration of each transition. In my case, I set cube transition to 1.5 seconds. So I selected transition for this button, and now when I click this, you will see this cube transition is 1.5 seconds long. In addition to live cameras, which I have 2 right now, we can also add remote cameras over SRT. I happen to have one remote camera in my remote office, which is about 80 miles from here. And to add this camera, I will be using SRT, Secure Reliable Transport. SRT is available as a SRT caller or SRT listener. Caller means I will be calling on the camera and I know that IP address and port number for that remote location. So I select SRT caller and I specify the either IP address or host name and the port number. So now when I click here, you will see this is actually my office in our Wayne Pro Video headquarters. Since these cameras are all PTZ cameras, I can also control PTZ cameras directly from vMix user interface. For NDI camera, it's perhaps the easiest. You just click on this little gear in the lower right corner of this input, and you select PTZ, and you click connect, and you know the IP address typically is automatically discovered, so I click connect. And now I can actually control this camera using vMix user interface. For remote cameras, you need to specify the remote IP address and also remote port number. So you go with the protocol, which is VISCA over IP, and you specify remote IP address, and you click connect again. And now you will see that I can also control camera which is actually far away from here, connected via the internet. So this is remote camera. For SDI cameras, you can also control those cameras as long as these are PTZ cameras. You just also need to specify the IP address since cameras are on your network. So you click on PTZ and then again you specify protocol, VSCO over IP, and you specify the IP address of this camera, click connect, and now you can actually control your SDI camera. So now we have camera connected via SDI, NDI, and remote camera connected via SRT. Let's look at the anatomy of each input tab. You see the content of that input, which could be live or image or something else. You can close this input by simply clicking here. You will delete this input. Quick play will switch this to the program output with the default transition, or perhaps with the cut transition. You can also, if this is pre-recorded audio video, you can choose to play, and you can also choose to loop this footage or audio so it will be played indefinitely. These 4 buttons here for each input allow to overlay this input over program output. These are also called downstream keys, and the reason they're called downstream keys is because that overlay is applied at the very end of all your effects, at the very top on your program output. So you have 4 downstream keys, so you can overlay this particular input on top of your program output, and this is available for every input. You can also enable or disable audio by clicking here if audio is associated with that input. You can look at the large preview by clicking here. But the most interesting is this little gear in the lower right corner. This is where you can do many things to modify your input. So first of all, you can rename this input. You can adjust colors. You can introduce chroma key. You can do professional color correction with color wheels. You can add effects like blur effect. You can change position, zoom in, zoom out, change XY coordinates, or rotate your input. Multiple layers. You can overlay up to 10 other inputs on top of each input. You can also specify triggers, what happens when this input is introduced. Tally lights, PTZ control, and some other settings. Now I'd like to add one pre-recorded clip. So this is video tab here, so you can browse your hard drive. I have this video clip here and click OK here. As you already know, you can control your inputs by clicking on this little gear in the lower right corner. So what you can do with each input, like I mentioned before, you can rename this input. You can also assign input to different category. You can introduce categories for live cameras, graphics, low thirds, or something else. You can also do, you can adjust color, you do color correction. You can also change position of each input, so you can zoom in, you can move, you can rotate. You can also introduce cropping, which is very useful when we have multi-view arrangements in your project. You can also reset all. You can also chroma key each input. It's called color key. You can select color key and then grab green around the person which needs to be chroma keyed. Select this chroma key filler and one of these presets, and you can see right away this image is chroma keyed. Since this is pre-recorded video, I can start playback by clicking on this playback button and also select to loop this video, so this has indefinite playback. At this point, what I can do, I can actually overlay this video on top of my program by using one of downstream keys, and you have downstream key 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can use any downstream key or overlay function to overlay this particular input on top of program output, just like this. And using position adjustment, you can also change the size of this image and maybe move it around a little bit, so to make composition like this. So you see, I made myself a company of this. Broadcaster is right here. So this is when you use your downstream key, and you can use any of downstream key 1, 2, 3, or 4 for this overlay. Now let's add more inputs, and specifically titles. There are many pre-compiled titles and low thirds available here. There's also GT titling software included with this package of software, and where you can build your own animated titles, animated low thirds, and animated stingers, which are image sequences. So by clicking on this title, we can go and add title, and we can introduce some text, maybe JVC demo. And now title is here. That's our title. When we use downstream keys, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, let's say number 2, title will build as animated sequence. You can see it right here. And again, clicking on the same downstream key, title will disappear like this. So that's a good example where you can use one downstream key to add image overlay, and second downstream key to add your title, and then to remove your title here. More inputs, you can add also virtual sets, and there's also several virtual sets pre-configured included, or you can purchase extra virtual sets from other companies or individuals who make virtual sets for vMix, and typically same people make virtual sets for TriCasters. So I can select this pre-compiled virtual set here, and setting is very simple. You click on Setup next to this virtual set input, and you need to specify what should appear on the monitor 1, screen 1. Could be my NDI feed here, and also who should be talent A. Typically it's good to have somebody who is already chroma keyed for talent here. So just like this, so you have your virtual set with the broadcaster and something on the screen 1. And again, you can go to adjustments here, go to layers, select layer for this gentleman speaking, and perhaps move him a little bit maybe to the right, or maybe make him a little bigger so it looks something like this. So this is your virtual set, super simple, and just use transition of your choice to send it to your program output. So this was virtual set. What else is available here? You can also add, the source could be your web browser, actually. You can type any URL here. For example, you can type youtube.com, and that's your input now, and you can control this source actually from your preview window. So there are some trending videos here, so you can select any content here and play it back, and you can even play it back full screen. And now you're using your web browser as a source, still with this overlay, which you can remove by clicking on downstream key, and you can add transition anytime using another downstream key, and etc., etc. So it's a super simple to use but extremely powerful software for live video production. Image overlays. As I mentioned before, vMix has very powerful image overlay capabilities where you can overlay one input on top of another input. Let me quickly show you how you do it. First of all, let me add one of the video clips, something like this. It's a motion moving background, and I clicked play and I clicked on loop to play it indefinitely. So now I'm looking at this input and I'm clicking again this little gear and going to layers. So now, as you can see, I can overlay up to 10 other inputs on top of this input. So let me show you the example of this. So let's overlay my SDI feed here like this. But I'd like to go and edit it, make it smaller, obviously, because I'm trying to build nice picture-in-picture here. So I'm going to make it smaller, move it, add border, select border color, select the thickness of the border, perhaps 10 pixels, and maybe even radius for those corners here. And as you can see, I have already picture-in-picture, two layers on top of each other. I will go again in the same input settings for this input, back to layers, and use layer 2, maybe my NDI feed. And again, I will edit this feed and move it around here, and also add border, and maybe select different color just for demonstration. Also 10 pixels wide, and radius is again 40. So now I have two layers. I can go ahead again into the input settings, into layers, and overlay third input, which is chroma keyed newscaster. So now you can see what is it? It's just three layers on top of moving background. So, and I can add up to 7 more layers. So it's a very powerful layering capabilities. And now let me click on my transition. So now this is on my output, on my program output, just like this. And now let's look at video outputs. vMix supports up to 4 hardware video outputs and also several outputs over IP. When I say hardware video outputs, I consider 3G SDI or 12G SDI depending on the model of video mixer. Video outputs are configured in this tab, which is called external video outputs. When you click on this gear here, you can see that output 1 is always programmed, but you can also assign roles for output 2, 3, and 4. So these outputs can be assigned to preview, multi-view, replay, or any of inputs. When you go to external output settings, that's where you can configure up to 4 hardware outputs. First of all, you need to click on the external renderer. That's what determines that you'll be using hardware device for this output. And then you can select device. You have 5 devices here available. You have 4 connections via Decklink Duo card, because you may remember I mentioned that those are inputs or outputs. So you can use any of Decklink Duo, 3G SDI, in outputs, or you can also use your aux, which is Decklink Mini Monitor HD5. Typically for program for external one, we would use Decklink Mini Monitor HD5, and port you can select either SDI or HDMI. In my case, this is SDI I'm using. So you click OK now, and now when you click on external, you see it becomes and changes color to red. Now your output is, the program is going out via 3G SDI aux output. And to stop it, you can also click like this. In addition to hardware outputs, you can also configure NDI and SRT outputs. You see that here in the settings in outputs NDI SRT. You can enable up to 4 NDI outputs by just clicking here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now you have 4 outputs, and you can specify the source for each output, which can be your program, which is output preview, multi-view, replay, and again any of the inputs. Now right next to NDI, there's also this little gear which allows you to enable SRT output. And SRT, it supports also caller, listener, or rendezvous, so you can have extra 4 SRT outputs which can be routed to any destination over the internet. And finally, streaming outputs as well. So let's look at this gear right next to stream, and you can see that you can simultaneously configure vMix to stream up to 3 destinations, 3 content delivery networks concurrently. So there's destination 1, 2, and 3, and any destination can be programmed to either custom URL and stream key, or you can use username and password to any of those already pre-configured content delivery networks. And so after you configured all 3 destinations, you can select either start all or start 1 or start 2, something like this. So, but up to 3 destinations simultaneously, you can output RTMP or RTMPS to different content delivery networks. Audio inputs. When audio is embedded in your video streams or comes in as a separate audio from your USB or Dante digital audio sources, or maybe it's even pre-recorded audio MP3 file, that audio instantly appears in the integrated vMix audio mixer. You can always click on the same familiar little gear icon here, and you can adjust each input for gain. You can introduce delay, which may be very helpful when you are matching multiple sources, and especially when audio is not embedded. That also accepts AST 3.0 plugins. There is built-in equalizer, which is good when you use maybe voice or some microphones. You may want to adjust some frequency response. Built-in compressor, built-in noise gate, channel mixer, and channel matrix. That's why you can always map mono source on both stereo channels. And there is also bus mixer. vMix supports multiple audio buses, which you can set your audio outputs to multiple buses, so maybe several buses for multilingual audio or any return video or something else. So all audio inputs, whether this is embedded audio, separate audio, or audio files playback, will appear in this audio mixer, and you can always click on this to undock it from that panel, and now you can actually drag it to the separate monitor. So especially when you have multiple audio sources, you can use second monitor for true multi-track production audio mixing. And finally, a few more settings and options of vMix. You all remember this most important button, Add Input. That's how you add your inputs and introduce inputs to workflow. Next to Add Input, there's Record button. So when you click on Record Settings, you have 2 recorders. You can record any of 4 outputs, and you can select different file formats, bit rates, and everything else. Right next to it is External. That's how you set up your external hardware outputs. SDI 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and also SRT and NDI. And after you set up your outputs, you simply click on this button, and that's how you enable these outputs become active. Sometimes I forget, you will also forget to enable external output like this, and then you have no output. You have option in the settings, I will show it to you later, to automatically start output the moment you launch your vMix software, which means the moment you start your project, your output will be already activated immediately. Streaming settings here, so you have your 3 streams to 3 different CDNs. Right next to streaming, there's multi-coder. Multi-coder actually allows you to record not only outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4, but also any input. So you can record ISO inputs and outputs as well. Next to multi-coder is another interesting feature, which is called playlist. You can add inputs to your playlist by clicking here and populating playlist with your inputs. And then you can double click on each input and specify the duration and also the transition to next input. And this will act as a playlist. It will automatically switch inputs, so you can introduce maybe commercials in between your live shows, or maybe the whole channel programming overnight when you are not live. Playlist is very powerful feature here. Moving farther away, this is overlay. So overlays are downstream keys, but you can specify actually how these overlays should behave. You can specify whether this overlay should be overlaid full screen, or maybe in the picture-in-picture, also duration, transition, and many other things. Right next to overlay, there's this menu for optional features and optional software, and especially GT Title Designer. That's where you can design your own animated graphics, low thirds, and many other things. And on top of their GUI, you have these settings. Settings pretty much defines the behavior and some features of your vMix-based production. You can specify colors of your desktop and like live and pre-view window colors, master frame rate, performance, some other things. You can also, in the display settings over here, you can also change the size of your input windows like this. Right now, depending on your preference and the size of your monitor, you may want to make those bigger or smaller. Right now, I set up mine for 320 by 240, but you can see you have options as small as 208 by 156 and as large as 400 by 300. So depending on the size of your monitor. There's also telelights, web controller, specific audio outputs. That's where you can enable up to 7 extra audio buses. One bus is always enabled, it's your program, but you can enable up to 7 more audio buses, so you can route your audio outputs to any bus of your choice, and then when you introduce outputs, you can specify which audio bus should be output with a specific output. This allows you to create multi-language outputs or return audio or some other options for audio, which is different from your main program audio. There are also activators. That's where you add settings for your optional RMLP 350 and RMLP 450 control surfaces. And of course, your audio mixer here, we already talked about audio. It's a very powerful audio mixing option with a multi-track with all your inputs and multiple functions available here. Well, that's about what I wanted to show you today, so you can start using your KMIP8S4 and KMIP12S8 right away. By no means my quick tutorial is not a replacement for amazing videos created by vMix engineers, those guys who actually wrote the code. So please go to vmix.com website and check their training videos, check their product documentation. They have detailed descriptions, including detailed videos on every single feature of vMix editing and mixing software. Whatever you want to learn how to use instant replay, overlays, animations, moving graphics, you will find excellent tutorials at vmix.com website. On that note, thank you very much. That was Edgar Shane, and goodbye.
Broadfield Distributing is a value-added distributor of live production, streaming, video editing, and storage products. We only sell to resellers. We are always looking for new dealers, so call us at 1-800-634-5178 or email sales@broadfield.com. You'll like doing business with Broadfield because we make it easy to do business.